Joining me now is one of those negotiators, Shalanda Young, Director of the Office of Management and Budget. Director Young, welcome back to the Sunday Show.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Okay, so let's put on the screen some of the provisions of the law. I know we did that in the introduction. Imposes new caps on federal spending for 2 years, restarts the federal student loan repayments, imposes new work requirements for food stamps, cuts $1.8 billion in IRS funding, rescinds $30 billion in unspent COVID funds. Now that the president and the speaker both said they didn't get everything they wanted, what didn't the White House get?
Look, we always said if you have a true budget discussion, if you want to really deal with deficits in this country, you got to talk about revenues. We brought it up over and over with Republicans. We're not going to give up on this. Real deficit and debt reduction comes from asking those at the very top to pay their fair share in this country. And that's why this wasn't a fulsome discussion, but we're going to keep coming back to that.
Why did the president agree, excuse me, to codify an end to the student debt repayments pause that also prevents him from using any future moratoria or interest rate reductions?
Remember, we, of course, have a court case that is ongoing, but at some point, we were going to also reinstitute payment after a pause, and this was actually very close to the time frame we were considering in the administration.
Right, and in fact, it's September that debt repayments were supposed to start anyway. You know, from the start, Director Young, the president said he would not negotiate over the debt ceiling, and yet here we are talking about an increase in the debt ceiling tied to a deal on the budget. How did you separate the two?
Well, Jonathan, negotiation is in the eye of the beholder, but as someone who is in the room, I can tell you, I don't like to use the word red line, but it was our stance that the debt ceiling had to be dealt with for a longer period of time. We got that. There was not much discussion around that point. That was a core tenet the White House team went in with. So call it what you want, but I will tell you there wasn't a lot of discussion, and our position is in the bill as written.
And as we know, everyone in the room, well, the two principals both said, oh, no, we're not going to default. So that was on the table. Okay, so Director Young, one of the ingenious things about the law, at least to me, the debt ceiling nerd that I am, is that it incentivizes Congress to pass all 12 appropriations bills by the end of the year under threat of an automatic continuing resolution with a 1% across the board spending cut for agencies. But here's my question. Does that kick in at the end of the calendar year, which is, you know, December 31st, January 1st, 2025? Or does that kick in at the end of this fiscal year, which is September 30th?
Who knew you were a budget wonk, Jonathan? So it would not. Clearly, we have to give the process time.
Right.
So doing it this fall would be much too early to do that. So we give them time into the new year. Budget deals can take a while to put together. As you know, we rely on stopgap measures. So we do give them time. But look, it's going to be a slog. I don't want to, and I told my colleagues, part of the deal here was to make sure we gave top lines to the spending panels to make sure that they could succeed. Because we don't want to be back here October 1st having conversations about a shutdown. So the numbers we came up with, while not what we would have written by ourselves, allows the appropriations process, the spending process, to have a place to start from and reach success.
So if I'm hearing you right, there won't be a government shutdown because I guess there will be a continuing resolution that gets us through the end of this fiscal year into the start of the next fiscal year to give time to the appropriators to meet this January 1st, 2025 deadline.
I would say they have top lines, so we don't need to argue about that again. That's why we chose to go ahead and have this budget conversation. We had to have it at some point in order to make sure the government spending process could work. So they have their top lines. That will make it easier to write bills to the top line. And we're going to have to fight to make sure that those on the far right don't try to take us into a shutdown. But we've given the Appropriations Committee a fighting chance.
Okay. See, now you see how far my budget wonkery goes. It doesn't go that far. So, Director Young, going into the talks, the president and the speaker had no relationship. I mean, we all know that. Many of the reports about your role in the negotiations, particularly in the Washington Post, also in a column in CNN, point to your decade-long tenure as staff director of the House Appropriations Committee and a reputation, a good reputation, on both sides of the aisle for being well-liked and respected by Republicans. So with that respect comes trust. So why do you think Republican negotiators trusted you?
So let me say all the relationships were important. Not just with the Speaker and his negotiating team. We were in contact constantly with Democratic and Republican members of Congress across the House and the Senate. The President's time in the Senate pays dividends when going into those rooms, his history of bipartisanship. And, you know, I did the spending battles for 15 years from Congress. I kind of know blow-ups, bad days are something you jump over. You keep your eye on the prize, which was don't jeopardize this economy over one bad day of negotiations. And people have asked me, did you ever feel like you wouldn't reach a deal? I did not. Call it eternal optimism, but I saw the statistics and what was at stake here, and that was not an option to have millions of Americans who would have been out of work if we had a first ever default on our debt.
So what you're saying is, so you weren't the secret sauce?
Lots of secret sauces. So look, in this town, you go, I need you to talk to this person, I need you to talk to that person. It really does take a team. In the House, certainly, I spent a lot of late-night phone calls with House leadership and House members who they know that I don't spin for them. I give members the facts, and they decide how they'll vote.